to talk about today. And yes, I see them. I see their sticky notes.
Mm-hmm.
I see their sticky notes. I need to read those later. Hi everyone. Good morning. Oh, it's afternoon. It's noon already.
Yes.
So we'll see how many students show up. We have a smaller class this time. We have about 14, and if it's if it's not for the lockdown, I would definitely would bring them to downtown again. But of course, we can't do that. So we talked about global cities and globally relevant cities. And so one of the points of conversation that I had with them yesterday was to talk about some of or specific assets, specific features of Pontiac City that could be transformative. In other words, could have potential for transforming the city into what we call a more strengthened or a more globally relevant city. And very, very interesting ideas that came about from that conversation. I wish they're here to contribute those ideas themselves, but I don't know. You'll probably you'll have a better way of noting whether they are here or not by depending on who's jumping in, joining the Zoom.
Well, it looks like adding some sticky notes here.
Oh, they are adding sticky notes.
I love it. This is what it's for. This platform is totally interactive. If I'm going to make sure there's a link in the chat. I finally got it together. It's on Facebook now. Sorry, I've been distracted.
Yeah. So they're right with us. Only that they're probably not joining us via Zoom. But if they do, if you see them, if you notice them that they're trying to get in, just make sure that you allow them to jump into the conversation. But anyway, let me go back to what I was starting to say. One of the features or specific assets that they have identified about Pontiac is its locational advantage. Okay, so Pontiac for them has a very good potential for transforming into a globally relevant. And when we say globally relevant or global cities, these are cities that are not just connected cities, cities with hubs of connectivity and in terms of transportation and communication facilities, but also that these cities are magnets of talents, and they are culturally, they have well-established cultural centers, and among others, cities that are accommodating or hosting some of the big political engagements, whether and we're talking about cities like New York, Chicago, London, Paris, Tokyo, those like big cities, which are really representations of the features of what we call global cities. So we were going over what are specific assets, what sort of potential, features of Pontiac City that could be that would propel the city to become more globally relevant. And so the one main, like I said, one main feature that they have identified is its Pontiac's locational advantage. And the way how it's connected to Woodward. But I also implored, I also gave them the kind of another view of the locational advantage of Pontiac, in a way that its locational advantage could be a disadvantage. And so I'm hoping that they would be here so that they could explain themselves if they have come up with an idea of how Pontiac could be a disadvantage. I mean, its location could be a disadvantage as in as much as it is an advantage. Any thoughts on that?
Jim?
So just discussing and looking at some of the notes here, I see that there's some really bright thoughts here going on with regards to attracting talent. And certainly that's a central theme that we wish to expand on, and why universities are so important to downtown efforts to grow. Relationship with Oakland University over years has really been a very powerful stepping stone to bring forth knowledge about Pontiac, and more importantly, we see the student body as experts, given that we're really looking at that age to repurpose the very things that are being described here on the screen. Just as an example, some of the nightlife stuff, the potential for mass transit, the diversity of restaurants and things that are the amenities that draw and serve talent when it finds itself in a urban environment. And for a lot of the last decade or so, there's been very little effort on behalf of the city of Pontiac to bring forth those kinds of elements of intent and more or less
of a globally relevant city.
Yes.
Yeah. So one of my students actually asked, can you please describe what Pontiac is? How do they know? How would they know about Pontiac? What should they know about Pontiac?
Do you get that?
Well, yeah, from the standpoint of what they should know is Pontiac is an urban sector that's roughly 26 miles north of Detroit, and to its credit, it has a rich history of automotive and manufacturing, and more recently, a entrepreneurial bent has begun to surface, and the focus of Oakland County as its county seat. A lot of people don't recognize that Pontiac is actually the county seat for Oakland County, one of the 5th or 10th richest counties in the country. So it has some cachet, and unfortunately has lost its significance with the manufacturing and post-industrial situation. And what it's attempting to do is find its legs in the 21st century. That's what I'm referring to in terms of recognizing the inherent relationship with young university students and so forth, because they are indeed new customers. If one looks at the 50th county of the country, it's a location to Oakland County, et cetera.
I see. So we do have some more current initiatives toward revitalizing Pontiac, and that is the presence of the Amazon as Amazon distribution center, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that's an asset. I mean, we talked about it yesterday as well, but as I was driving on along Telegraph last weekend, we went to the farmers market, and I saw the old mall. It's all flattened now. Something's going to be built there, but it is designated as an opportunity zone. Right? Am I correct?
Yeah, it is an opportunity zone.
Yes, Pontiac is an opportunity.
The entire downtown in the loop is an opportunity zone, and then it kind of goes and bends northeasterly along Perry up towards University.
I see.
All of that is accordingly opportunity zone designated. And downtown, the entirety of the loop is kind of a central core that really has an interesting way of utilizing those funding mechanisms. Funding mechanisms also require you to address community engagement and community is really very powerful. If we could get university engagement along with the engagement on behalf of the community, I think we'd be on a rich road to success.
So how are we doing, if I may ask, Jim, how are we doing in terms of engagements or ongoing interests in investing in Pontiac? Because I see that big lot in what was the name of that mall? That's not, I forgot the name of that mall. You know, that's
The
right.
Pontiac Mall, is that what you're speaking of?
Yeah, it's the one that's along Telegraph Road. Is it Telegraph Road? Yeah, coming from the farmers market. It's Elizabeth. Is it Elizabeth Lake?
Yes, that's the Pontiac Summit Mall.
Yes, Summit Mall. I was gonna say Somerset Mall, but yeah, it's another. It's in another town. I mean, city. Yeah, the Summit Mall. So I'm just curious if there is some potential investors in there already. If you know, could you please let me know?
They are making efforts to demolish that mall at some point. I think that may have gotten by the COVID-19. It may be sitting, waiting to make up its mind. But that conversation's been going on for a decade or two.
Look at that. Where and then there's been investment offers of investment that didn't quite get through the council this Tuesday, but it's from Arcturus, who is an opportunity zone fund. So at least there's interest. I don't know how that offer is. We're not fully aware of that yet because it wasn't presented, but that's something we're looking at. But that's for the Phoenix Center, and that's
so the Phoenix Center is generating a lot of interest currently because we're getting close to the date when the settlement agreement gets
And see, surprisingly, none of my students mentioned the Phoenix Center, and so I did not kind of present it to them because I was thinking, you know, it would be a good opportunity for us to talk about the Phoenix Center today. And so, what key aspects of the Phoenix Center should I highlight the next time we talk about? I mean, I know what it is. I know its capabilities, but what is the latest news about the Phoenix Center?
okay. I'm just zooming down here. Okay.
So here's a little bit of pictorial history about the Phoenix Center. And it began with a demolition possibility, and then it turned from demolition to be saved, and then it turned to a court settlement after several years. And we're now in a place where the settlement requires us to have several, if not $16 million worth of rehab done between now and November 1st. Raise your hand if you think that's possible. Probably not possible, and there are all kinds of punitive damage extensions, but there are interested investors who are coming forth to try and persuade in one fashion or another to resolve that issue as we speak. So
Let's see.
Speak further about that, we could hypothetically talk about a lot of things. This afternoon at 1 o'clock, 1:30? At 1:30, we're going to have a kind of an hour and a half long conversation about the center in particular.
Okay.
We'll have a lot more of a diversified group to talk more clearly and more distinctly about all of those possibilities. But we've always felt as though the Phoenix Center is a cornerstone, and for an interesting reason. Our community is not in our city, and if you visit our city, you'll recognize that. our community needs to be in its city, and the community is really emotionally tied to almost nothing here, with one exception, and that just happens to be the Phoenix Center. So we see the Phoenix Center as that catalyst that draws community back into its city, and we begin to have some hope in a thriving process, versus, you know, an amenity-rich process that can't sustain itself.
I may have asked you this question before, Jim, but what's the implications, given that, you know, we are on lockdown? I mean, implications to all sorts of ideas to work or save the Phoenix Center, given the lockdown, and, you know, how we don't know how we're going to get out of this, when we're going to get out of this lockdown fully. So what are some of the kind of implications to, you know, all sorts of initiatives and efforts to preserve and keep the Phoenix Center, you know, alive?
I think what you're referring to is the COVID-19 lockdown and the movement of people back to cities. And of course, the movement of people back to cities has been something that's been going on for a decade, and getting a lot of advanced play around the country and around the world, from things such as innovation districts by Brookings, if you're interested or familiar with those kinds of efforts. And then, more importantly, 3 billion people are expected to move back to cities by 2050. Then when COVID-19 broke, density wasn't so exciting factor. And then we had, you know, work from home, and, you know, 4 months ago when it broke, 5 months ago when it broke, we had 30% working from home, and 50% working from home, and now 70% working from home, most of which aren't going back, which is causing some to question, you know, New York City is having the question, rents and tenants and so forth in other major cities are being questioned. Corporate America is looking at it from a standpoint of revenue out the door, and saving by working from home, and all kinds of things. But I think that's an immediate reaction to, you know, the pandemic. And this isn't the first pandemic. It won't be the last pandemic. Cities have sustained themselves beyond pandemics from time immortal. So I think this is that moment. Is that a year from now? Is that 3 years from now? Is that 5 years from now, before density and its dangers are, you know, scratched from the brain? I'm not really sure. But what I do know is that there is still, in some of the most recent data on such, indicates that there wasn't much of a blip in terms of departure. You can actually speak from experience that there wasn't much of a difference in foot traffic from pre-COVID to COVID here in downtown Pontiac. Empty, it was empty. But that's a unique situation that we have here. It's not something that's universal. And although there was a lot of blowback with regards to density, I think for the most part, people have recognized the cities are important. You have to be very careful. You have to watch how we operate and watch how we socially distance. We have to be very careful over the next year. We need to see the vaccine be successful and get distributed, and that may be a year to a year and a half. And then we have, you know, the reinvention of the social district and the social interest. Has to come along and satisfy that. So we have published on here several pieces of information that confirm the kind of data that I'm describing. And for the most part, it's very informing. There's not such the distance that one might imagine has been taking place in New York City.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you can read a few of what my students have contributed
Yeah.
on the mural. I
Yeah,
cannot read from here.
We've got 5 minutes here, and I see Joseph Bostetter has asked, are there efforts being made to improve the aspects of entertainment and nightlife for young adults in Pontiac? Blair, do you want to address that?
You gotta unmute.
I unmute you.
All right, you're unmuted.
Yeah. Address what?
Blair's the owner of the Crowfoot Ballroom, which is an iconic music venue here in our downtown.
I couldn't hear what it was yet, so I can't address it.
Can you read the sticky
What
note
his comment is, please?
Joseph Bostetter asked if there's any efforts being made to improve the aspects of entertainment and nightlife. That's as much as I can zoom.
Okay. You can't see it on the screen.
It's that music, nightclubs, and concerts are about the least essential thing in society. And we expect that the Crowfoot Ballroom will be closed for 12 to 18 months. And venues across America, across Michigan, and in Pontiac are all trying to survive because we have notes due on our real estate, we have insurance, taxes, and utilities, and we're mothballed. I'm the only person here. We used to have a dozen people here every day, even when there was no activities. So there's nothing that's going to happen to nightlife at all as far as these kinds of situations. We believe that at the end of the 1919 flu pandemic, people were so excited about going out that they jammed every venue and ushered in the roaring 20s. I don't know if it happened, it would be great, but I suspect people are going to be very concerned about disease. They're going to be wearing their masks like many people from Asia do routinely because of pollution and other diseases. And I don't know if things will ever be the same. Basic toward the pandemic is number one, we don't know anything, and we don't know anything. We don't know if it's just the beginning or whether it's the end or we're in the middle. We don't know if there's any immunity. We don't know if it's going to mutate and become more serious. We don't know if it's going to be like chicken pox that many years later we get another disease based on chicken pox. The other thing is there's a cognitive process where people are used to the sun falling in the evening and rising in the morning. We all expect things to be normal. Well, normal, and we don't even know what the new normal looks like yet. Things are not going to be the same. And the pandemic is a walk in the park. This is a walk in the park. And those of us that are 70 aren't going to see the trauma, the worldwide trauma that global warming is going to usher in. And there will be multiple pandemics and mass migrations and refugees, crop failures, floods, fires. The whole world is going to change. And this is one of the great extinctions our planet has faced. We have to deal with it. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to develop one of the buildings downtown, and we're going to have it off the grid. We'll have no electrical from nuclear. We'll have no electrical from coal. And we're not going to get anywhere if we don't have equality in our country. And white supremacists somehow believe they have a position of privilege. They don't have any privilege. When 20 or 25% of Americans aren't actualizing their full potential because their foot is on their back, somebody else's foot is on their back, that eliminates 20% of our population's opportunity to grow and contribute fully. And growth happens on growth. Growth begets growth. And stagnation does not contribute to growth. So we've got to deal with the issues that Black Lives Matter has put in our face We've got to deal with this walk in the park pandemic, which truly should have been an opportunity to work collegially with our families, with our communities, and with the other nations of the world as a preparation for dealing with a big one, which is global warming, which is on us now and is only going to accelerate in a geometric fashion. It's going to rapidly accelerate with floods, hurricanes, fires, changes in agriculture, heat. It's serious stuff we're dealing with, and people aren't dealing with it. And much of it's come from bad leadership that's not laying out the cards on the table. So as far as nightlife, frankly, it's my business, but I don't give a damn about nightlife. I mean, it's what I do during the day, but it has nothing to do with the preservation of the species, the preservation of the bacteria, and the small animals, and the multiflorid life that's becoming extinct. It has nothing to do with how we move forward unless it becomes a model of respect and sensitivity and an opportunity for us to get in touch with our higher nature, which is what Plato said music can do, can put us in touch with our higher nature. And at that realm, maybe we can hold hands and deal with the huge issues that we face in 2020 and should have been facing our entire lives.
You're here.
Wow, thank you for that. Well, on that note, is there anything else for Annalie? Because we're going to transition to something that is an essential service, which is our park system. And,
Okay.
but if anyone had, Annalie, do you have any other questions?
Here's what I would like to do. I would love to have Blair's response to one of my students' question, because it is an important piece of information and thoughts coming from the person who owns Crowfoot and the person who has had so much investment in Pontiac's revitalization. So I want to thank you for responding to that question, Blair. And I don't know how you're gonna share with us your recording, Monica, if you did record this conversation.
Yes.
I would forward to having a copy if you can. Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be this board here will continue to be active, and we've also created another more blank board for continued conversations and input following this, because this board's pretty loaded right now. And
Okay.
we'll be putting video pieces from our conversation in the contextual spots, and also sharing them with a playlist.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And I will.
And also
Yeah.
responding to all of your students' questions with more depth.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. And nice to meet everyone.
Thank you, and thank all of your students for participating. We love to see these stickies. That's the right spirit. Thank you.
We should
Yes.
do this more often.
We need to do this more often.
Well, let me know if there are opportunities, and I will respond. Thanks, and have a good day.
Thank you.
Annalie.